do not buy the Nintendo Switch 2. I am seeing that constantly on the internet. So many people, especially diehard Nintendo fans, saying they're going to boycott the system or saying this is the worst thing that Nintendo has ever done, calling it a scam or a ripoff or downright bad for the industry. And I want to talk about it today because I think that a lot of the anger, the focus, the hatred that's being directed at Nintendo is coming from Nintendo fans. And ever since that Nintendo Direct yesterday, it's been all bad news, but a bunch more bad stuff came out last night. Apparently, hundreds of games that work on the Nintendo Switch 1 do not work on the Nintendo Switch 2. The battery life for the Switch 2 is actually going to be worse, and in general, it seems like something is off. But I want to say, maybe let's wait. Maybe, if you're not completely thrilled about the Nintendo Switch 2, definitely do not buy it at launch. But let me explain, because I have a point I want to hit involving the 3DS. But let me explain. Hi, I'm DreamcastGuy. If you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So this morning, I just woke up and apparently Nintendo's letting a bunch of press get early hands-on, playing a lot of stuff. Like here is the new Mario Kart World, also showing off the fact that, I mean, let's face it, most of the launch games are just going to be slightly improved versions of Nintendo Switch games. Here's the new version of Tears of the Kingdom that now runs at 60 FPS, and yeah, it looks smooth. Yeah, the load times are a lot better because that game has extremely bad load times. I've complained about this in the past, but I genuinely hate the load times on the Nintendo Switch. But I gotta be honest, seeing a lot of this stuff just doesn't impress me. Like, yeah, there's Cyberpunk running on a Switch 2. I guess that's kind of cool. Yeah, the screen on the Switch 2 is bigger, but a lot of people are saying, okay, I guess I'm just not that wowed because we have this on Steam Deck. We have this on systems. You can stream this on your phone if you've got PlayStation Now and stuff. I want to talk about this because it does feel like a lot of fans are very much hung up on the fact that this is by far the most ridiculously priced thing of all time. Like, look at this. A almost $500 console, $80 games, $90 Joy-Cons. I mean, if you're even just trying to sit down, say you're somebody that's buying the Nintendo Switch 2 specifically to play Mario Kart or Mario Party with your kids, you're going to be dropping, what, $750 to play one game at launch with your kids? This, to me, is literally the most ridiculous pricing I've ever seen in my life. But something I want to talk about is the fact that last night, the listings came out and it showed the fact that a lot of even ports are going to be $80. It is $80 to buy Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which is a good game, but it's a game you can beat in like 4 hours. $80 to play that on the Nintendo Switch 2, which to me feels ridiculous. Now, I saw MVG tweeted this out yesterday. And again, I still have to say, it's annoying that a lot of these cartridges are actually fake. These are this anything has a little white bar here, says this is just a code in the box. This is a 3DS game. They have ported a 3DS game to the Nintendo Switch 2. It doesn't really look that crazy different from the original 3DS, but I do actually love Bradley Default a lot. Selling it for full price, it was $40 on the 3DS, and now it's $40 on the Switch 2. How are you not able to put that on the cart? But he said, these prices are all over the place. And when I was scrolling down, a lot of people are like, bro, this looks like a Toys R Us flyers from the 90s this, with these prices. This is, this is why Nintendo hunted down those Switch emulators. I saw this comment. Half don't even work. That's ridiculous. Over 120 Switch games have compatibility issues or will not start on the Switch 2. Now, when I saw that headline, I was like, wait, what? Now, I looked into it, and apparently this is a lot of stuff that is still being investigated. I decided to read this article, and it sounds like what's happening is that a lot of people just do not have a Switch 2 dev kit, or a lot of people just that made a Nintendo Switch 1 game that maybe sold pretty decent, they're working on other stuff. They don't want to go back and make a patch or a port. Some people are even saying that apparently inside the code itself, there is some translation that actually makes Switch 1 games work on the Switch 2. Now, if you read the fine print, apparently down here, It's basically 99% of games work. That's the way it works. But there is 15,000 Nintendo Switch games that do work. So 120 that aren't working, it's about 1%. 1% of games not working, not the biggest deal. But this does suck. 75% of third-party games have not finished compatibility testing. They start, which is good, but whether compatibility issues any of these arise during the game is to be determined. Now, what this person is talking about here is that we had this with the PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 4 Pro, and now with the PlayStation 5, there are certain games that get a little bit messed up. There are certain PlayStation 4 games that actually run worse on the PlayStation 5. For some weird connectivity issues, they just don't work as well. And we didn't know that until we were actually having a PlayStation 5 and testing out every random obscure Japanese JRPG or Onichimbara Z. Basically, I think that the list of games that do not work on the Nintendo Switch 2 are going to keep growing. And even then, some of this is crazy. Games like Doom Eternal, Fall Guys, Fortnite might not work well or at all on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, yes, this is a clickbait headline, but I think it really signifies the fact that the Nintendo Switch 2 is not bigger and better in every single way. I think a lot of us are kind of used to the fact that typically when you buy that next console generation, it's the same system but better. Better graphics, cool new controller with extra features, sometimes extra buttons, new exclusives. Oh, here's the new sequel, the new graphics, that new thing you got to buy and play. It is weird that the Nintendo Switch 2 measurably in some ways is worse. And I have to admit that apparently the battery life of the Nintendo Switch 1 on the upper end goes up to about 9 hours. The battery life apparently of the Nintendo Switch 2 limits itself around 6 hours. And that's if you're playing it at like minimum brightness with your volume down, playing like indie games. So it sounds like the battery life of the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be about 2 or 3 hours if you're playing a game that's graphically intensive. Now, this isn't too crazy. I mean, the Nintendo Switch 1, if you're trying to play like Tears of the Kingdom or something actually crazy good, and you're not using headphones, this thing's battery doesn't last long. But it is weird to me that the Nintendo Switch 2 measurably has any aspect of it that is a downgrade. I get why they didn't say it on stream, but yeah, people are going to shell out that extra $50, or I guess extra $150 compared to the original. This is my thing. The major hurdle a lot of people are having is that $450 price tag. The Nintendo Switch was $300. It came out at a time when the PlayStation 4 was $400, when the Xbox was $350. And a lot of the success of the Nintendo Switch was coming in as the cheaper alternative, a good gateway drug, an entry point to say, hey, you don't have to invest as much. Or a lot of times, I know a lot of people that bought a Nintendo Switch and said, man, it's great that for the cost of a PlayStation 4, I can get a Switch and like 2 launch games. That to them was a very big deal. But this is ridiculous. I also think this sucks. If you trade in your Nintendo Switch to get a Switch 2, you get $175, and that's for the OLED edition. Oh my God. If you trade in the Switch base model, it's $125, a Switch Lite $100. My God, the Switch OLED cost $350. They're giving you a 50% trade-in credit, just enough money to buy Mario Kart. It feels like everybody is still just in shock and can't help but laugh at the ridiculousness of these prices. I've even seen stuff like, it's called the Switch 2 because you see that cost and you switch to a cheaper hobby. People saying this is if you don't remember this, gentlemen, this is Don Matrick. He is, in a lot of ways, considered to be the person that killed the Xbox. He revealed the Xbox One, said it requires an internet connection. He said, if you don't like it, go buy an Xbox 360. Don Matrick very much did irreparable harm to Xbox forever. They're still trying to dig themselves out of the Don Matrick hole. And, I mean, a lot of people are saying, yeah, it sort of reminds us of that. It reminds us of the completely tone-deaf, weird, blind, absolute, obsessive amount of confidence of, hey, we own the market. We can price things however we want. People will still buy it. I just think that kind of sucks. Now, here's why I think you should not buy it at launch. If you're not completely won over, I am not here to tell you that you're a bad person if you buy a Nintendo Switch 2. I'm just saying that if you can barely afford it, if you're literally at a point where you're trying to choose between, eating less meals, that way you can save up to buy the Nintendo Switch 2 and hopefully one game at launch, I would actually say do not do that. And the reason why is the Nintendo 3DS. If you don't remember, during the Wii U era, the Nintendo 3DS literally saved Nintendo. This is well documented. But back in the day, the Wii U flopped so freaking hard that they were very much in a hole. Now, the DS was successful, so they released this revised edition. This is the 3DS. It has better graphics. It's got a 3D screen. It's got better battery life. And obviously, I got mine in the perfect purple. When this thing launched, it was $250. And it was an absolute failure. The 3DS flopped. It sold so bad. Nintendo absolutely panicked. So they said, oh God, we're super, super sorry. And they did an immediate price cut. It was about 6 months later. They slashed the price by 1/3, taking the price down from $250 all the way down to $170, making it not only one of the biggest price cuts, but also it led to the 3DS becoming such a massive success. The 3DS saved Nintendo, and it's because Nintendo was willing to take that cut to say, hey, we're making good games. We promise you're going to want to play the new Pokemon. You're going to want to play the new Mario Kart. You're going to want to play those games, and they're only on the 3DS. Please, please, please buy it. I am thinking, and I'm recording this right now on April 3rd, I am thinking that if the Nintendo Switch launch is abysmal, if nobody's really getting it. Scalpers are sitting on unsold inventory of $700 systems with their ridiculous markup. If this does not completely take off instantly, I do think we're going to see a price cut by Christmas. That is my hope. But additionally, if you have not looked into the Steam Deck, I actually think it's time to give it a look. If you've never really played one, if you've never really understood what this thing is, in my opinion, this thing is the Nintendo Switch 3. It is super easy to use. It docks with your TV. It's got thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Steam games. And Steam games are a lot cheaper than $80 a pop. I'm playing this game right now called Lost in Fantaland. It's like a version of like card-based Final Fantasy Tactics. But you can play this multiplayer. You can mod it. Mine's full of emulators. Mine's playing stuff like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on the PlayStation 2, or the fact that I can just pick up and play anything, anywhere. It's got a good battery life. It's got a great screen. It auto-configures the buttons. Any game you're playing, it can automatically see you're playing on a Steam Deck, and it automatically sets up the graphics settings. And if you want to tinker with that stuff, you can. My point is the fact that the Steam Deck is incredible. And I gotta be honest, I think it's much better than the Nintendo Switch 2. And it could even play Nintendo Switch 1 games as good as the Nintendo Switch 2 can. I'm just saying, this costs about the price of the Nintendo Switch 2, and it has a hell of a lot more functionality and a hell of a lot bigger screen. These have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts, and I just wanted to help you guys make an educated choice. If you do buy the Nintendo Switch 2, I'm not going to be mad about it. I think I'm still going to get one at launch because I want to make some videos about it, but I got to admit that my hype went from a 9.5 down to about a 3. Thanks for watching. If you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. I still cannot believe how badly that reveal went. This is definitely the biggest Nintendo L I've ever seen, maybe. I mean, the Wii U was pretty much a freaking dumpster fire, but this is a close one. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.